My name doesn't matter much to this story, but the field does, so I'll start there. 11 acres of red clover and old fence coasts my grandfather bought before the subdivision across the creek was ever a rumor. Land I inherited with nothing but a deed, a property tax bill, and a stubborn refusal to sell it to anyone who asked. People asked often. The neighborhood on the other side, Brindlewood Hollow, was the kind of place with stone gates and a welcome sign that mentioned property values before it mentioned neighbors. Their golf course backed right up to my fence line, and for years that fence was the only thing between my quiet, unremarkable field and their manicured seventh hole. The trouble started the spring Odalys Marsh became HOA president. She was sharp in the way people mistake for warmth. The kind of woman who remembered your name, your dog's name, and exactly how much leverage she had over you all at once. Odalys didn't scream. She smiled, she nodded. She said things like, "We just want what's fair for everyone." And somehow, everyone believed her, including me at first. She ran Brindlewood the way a chess player runs a board, 3 moves ahead, always looking reasonable while doing something else entirely. I found out what that something else was in June, when a surveyor named Denholm Pryce knocked on my door holding a clipboard and an apologetic expression. He'd been hired, he explained, to confirm boundary lines for a golf course expansion the HOA board had already approved. When I asked whose land the expansion was on, he checked his paperwork twice before admitting, quietly, that it included roughly 4 acres of mine. Nobody had asked me, nobody had told me. According to the HOA's internal maps, my field's eastern edge had simply been redrawn, folded into their course like it had always belonged there. I called Odalys. She was warm, apologetic, almost maternal about it. "There must have been a clerical mix-up," she said. "Our surveyors from years ago may have made an error and we simply built on what we believed was association property. I'll have someone look into it right away." She sounded so certain, so reasonable, that for a week I actually believed her. I even thanked her, which still embarrasses me to admit. Then I drove to the county archive on a Tuesday morning and pulled the original 1987 survey myself, along with every amendment filed against it since. There was no mix-up. My grandfather's line was correct, sharp and undisputed, right down to the inch, notarized by a surveyor who'd been dead for 11 years and whose signature nobody could quietly revise. Whatever error existed only in whatever version of the map Odalys wanted people to see, and I began to understand that her warmth wasn't confusion at all. It was strategy, deployed the way other people deploy silence. I didn't sue. Lawyers cost money I didn't have, and Brindlewood's Homeowners Association had an entire legal committee on retainer, headed by a soft-spoken man named Casimir Odom, who specialized in making problems disappear before they reached a courtroom, usually by outlasting whoever raised them. I knew I couldn't outlast that kind of money, so I decided not to try. Instead, I did something smaller, something almost boring, the sort of thing nobody in Brindlewood would think to be afraid of. I hired an appraiser named Solveig Krabel, a careful woman who specialized in agricultural and recreational land valuation, and asked her to calculate fair market rent for 4 acres of prime golf frontage inside an exclusive private club. Her number came back higher than I expected. I mailed the HOA an invoice for exactly that amount. Not a lawsuit, not a threat, just a bill, due in 30 days, for land they were already using without ever having asked. Odalys laughed when she got it, or so I heard from a landscaper named Thibaut Reyes, who worked both properties and liked to talk. She told the board it was a nuisance claim, that ignoring it would make it disappear, that I had no standing to bill anyone for land the HOA legally controlled. The board agreed. Nobody paid. I sent a second invoice, then a third, each one accumulating quietly, each one mailed with a return receipt so there'd be a paper trail proving they'd seen every single one. The first twist came from an unlikely place.
Brindlewood's insurance company required an annual audit of all association-owned property before renewing their liability coverage, and that audit flagged my 4 acres as land used but not owned, an open liability exposure the insurer refused to cover without a resolution. Odalys handled it by claiming the matter was under negotiation, which technically wasn't a lie, since I had, after all, been sending invoices. The insurer accepted that answer for 1 year. Only one. The second twist arrived through Perpetua Vance, a board member who'd quietly grown suspicious of how confidently Odalys dismissed every question about the survey. Perpetua wasn't loyal to me. She barely knew me. She was loyal to due diligence, and something about Odalys's certainty didn't sit right with her. She requested the original 1987 survey be entered into the HOA's official records for transparency. Odalys stalled for weeks, which only made Perpetua more curious, and curiosity once lit doesn't extinguish easily among people with time and money. The third twist came from my own restraint. I never once mentioned lawsuits, never threatened anyone publicly, never posted online about being wronged. I simply kept invoicing, kept documenting, kept behaving like someone who fully expected to be paid eventually. That composure unsettled Casimir Odom more than any threat could have. Lawyers trust anger. They know how to diffuse it. They don't trust patience, because patience means someone already knows how the story ends. The fourth twist unfolded during the HOA's fall meeting, when Brindlewood's course architect, a meticulous man named Ansel Bratesh, mentioned in passing that any legal dispute over ownership of the 7th hole's expansion could technically void the course's tournament certification, since the sanctioning body required the club to hold clear, undisputed title to all 18 holes. Nobody but Perpetua grasped the size of that sentence at the time. Brindlewood had spent 2 years and considerable money chasing that certification, largely because Odalys had promised the board it would double their membership waitlist.
The fifth twist, and the one that finally broke things open, came from the insurer itself. When my unpaid invoices reached 18 months old with no resolution and no lawsuit, an underwriter named Odalys Marsh called the HOA directly, not me, asking why an unresolved land dispute of this size had never been formally settled or litigated. She explained patiently that continued non-payment without resolution now read as an admitted ongoing liability rather than a disputed one, and that their policy required the board to either settle, purchase the land outright, or remove the disputed acreage from active course use within 60 days, or risk losing coverage on the entire golf facility, not just the 7th hole. That 60-day letter did what no lawsuit ever could. Suddenly, the tournament certification, the insurance, the 18 months of documented invoices, and Perpetua's stubborn paper trail all collided in one board meeting. Odalys tried to reframe it one final time, suggesting the association simply stop using the disputed 4 acres and relocate the hole, but Ansel pointed out that relocating a certified championship hole this late would cost more than 3 years of fair market rent combined, and that was before accounting for the membership refunds if the certification lapsed entirely. I wasn't in that meeting. I heard about it later, secondhand, the way you hear about weather you weren't standing in. The board voted, quietly and without ceremony, to formally lease the 4 acres from me at the appraised rate I'd been invoicing all along, backdated to my very first bill, with interest. Odalys resigned 2 weeks later, citing personal reasons, though Thibault told me she'd already been house hunting in a neighborhood 2 counties over, one without a golf course, without a board, and without anyone keeping receipts. I still own the field. I still get a check every month arriving like clockwork from an association that once redrew my boundary line without asking, signed now by a treasurer who has never once been late. Odalys's name doesn't come up much at Brindlewood anymore, though Thibault says the new board reads every survey twice before approving anything, and Perpetua, of all people, ended up chairing the property committee. What most people don't know, what even Perpetua never quite pieced together, is that when Denholm Pryce first surveyed my property that June, he didn't just confirm the 4 disputed acres, he also flagged, in a footnote nobody read closely enough, that the 8th hole's cart path had been quietly built 11 inches onto my land as well, a detail so small it never made any meeting, lawsuit, or invoice. I never billed them for that part. I never mentioned it. Some rent, I've learned, is worth collecting very slowly, and some boundaries are worth keeping to yourself, just in case one needs one more card to play.